Our second design. This time I wanted to create something a little more complex, including some fall features. Specifically, we're going to realize two wings inspired by autumn leaves with irregular pointy edges. I'm marking some dots to know better where I will paint my wings shape, imagining more or less something similar to this but with brighter colors. Once I'm ready, I start sketching out the contour of the wings using plain glycerin white, which is less heavy and more indicated for approximative work. I paint on both sides one main curved diagonal line facing upwards, starting from the eyebrow, and then another smaller one coinciding with the higher point of the brow arch. I connect these 2 points like this, creating this sort of flame shape, going all down till I touch the eyebrow, then again up, painting another little point that connects immediately with the other. Then I go all around the eyebrow, I stop at the same height of the upper point and I bend down, leaving this oval space, finishing with this last point next to the outer eye corner. When both of our wings seem ready, we can start filling them with a filbert brush and a medium brown shade. We won't use one stroke technique here as the wing shape will be too difficult to paint with a flat brush, so going just simple and classic filbert brush is the best option. I outline everything at first and then I start filling the spaces. We must focus just on the ends of the wings and blend everything gradually while we go inside. This design has a more realistic palette and gives a kind of ancient magical forest vibe. So I think it may be more appropriate for older kids, maybe from 7 years old. This painting process is great for studying and practicing, but not the best for fastness on the job. You may replicate these shapes using just teardrops composition on a sponged base maybe. Once I'm done with the brown, I add some burgundy or dark red to keep the saturation higher, as we're going to add a nice and bright orange right after this step. I'm blending everything out, cleaning up all the edges, and I'm also trying to make my whole shape a lot more sharper. Here I'm extending the perimeter right down on the nose, as you can see here, and going a little more on the points. When I'm okay with the result, I take my round sponge and I load it with the orange. This one should be the bright orange by Superstar. Be careful where you're painting and keep dabbing your sponge just in the outline space. You can bend it between your fingers to make it more simple, or just use a smaller sponge if you have one. Dab your color gently in the central area of the wings, blending it into the brown. Then, with the same sponge, I'm taking this beautiful ochre yellow, I'm adding it, filling the left space in the inner corner, blending everything nice and smooth with the orange. To enlighten everything more, I'm also adding a touch of white mixed with the yellow, using this tiny fingertip sponge, just to be more precise. This step will make the eyes really pop and the overall design a lot brighter. So I'm carefully dabbing here my little sponge on the corner, on one side, and then next to the other one. You can use just plain white mixed with another color, or just another color of your choosing, but the important thing is that it will be a lot more lighter than the central color, so than the orange. Now, we could move on to the next step, but actually I thought the saturation of this brown is still not the best. So I'm taking again my burgundy and I keep adding some more in the outer area of my wings. They will result much more colorful and vivid, which will be better next to the vivid green tones we're going to use later. So here I'm carefully blending everything inside, and I just repeat all the same process as always on the other side. To keep an eye contrast, I decided to add also a tip of black. It's not that necessary, but I think it makes such a nice difference. So I'm going to add my black, leaving out the burgundy shade, focusing only on some little small areas and mostly through the perimeter of the wings. This will bring it to life. Just a little touch more of orange to be happier, and then we can move to the next step. Now I'm using this great flat brush with medium long bristles. This also was from the Timo brushes set, along with my dark green. And I'm painting right between, in my eyebrows, this kind of crisp, clean, connecting bridge, blending out the color just in the upper part of it and keeping the lower one with this nice edgy cut. I'm also adding some right under the eye, just in the outer corner, blending as always. Going on, my beautiful light green loaded on my round sponge quarter, I add the color blended with my shaded dark green in between the wings and on the upper cheek, keeping the darker shade visible. Blend everything smoothly and then using the same sponge, load some bright yellow to give it more light. I add just a touch of it remaining on the bright green without covering it completely. So loading well my sponge with circular movements on the yellow, I'm starting to add my little touch of light here on the forehead and then going down on the higher cheekbones. Just a little bit, be careful because the yellow should not be the main leading color right here. Once you're happy with that, you can elevate your happiness more by adding some green sparkling glitters on all your green areas, while the paint is still wet. Here I also added some orange glitters, praying they will get stuck to the dried color, but fortunately it worked. Moving on to the fun part. Now we're painting a little glimpse of the forest setting, making it easy and effective. We're using the same technique from the first design, taking again our round brush and loading it at first with some dark green. I'm dabbing the color gently, creating this sort of leafy arch, following my sponge base in the upper part. The arch should be wider next to the wing edges and gradually become thinner. It doesn't have to be regular and precise. Try to give it some movement and make it realistic. Then I start pulling down my brush, creating this cascading plant effect, which is beautiful and pretty easy to make, even on the job. In this step, you should not use much water. The best thing is to keep your paint consistency dry, almost powdery. You can do it just by pulling down the green without reloading your brush. Now I'm moving to the cheek area. I dab my brush a little to give it some texture. Then I paint this kind of branch arm, but always using the same green. And sticking to it, I pull down my plant's fall. Keep it simple. Pull your brush down just a couple times, varying the lengths. Same process on the other side. Then with the same brush, I'm loading a bit of black. This is the consistency it should have, smooth and powdery. With gentle touches, start adding your black in the lower part of your arch and just some on your little folds to have some more contrast. I do the same thing under the eye, shading a little bit more right under the lashes for a makeup effect and some on the angles of my little bridge cut on the nose, just like I'm doing here. So finish to blending your shading here. And then after it, it's time to add some lights. We will use some yellow at first. I'm focusing on the upper part, right above the black shade. And this is really important, most of all in the spaces right between the plant cascades, as the light should be coming from behind. Then stepping to the white, I add some other more light touches right here in between the spaces and then all above my arch, but without covering completely the yellow we put before, and then right here above my branch on the cheek. And as we did in the upper part, some as well in between the spaces of the plant cascades. To keep a really high contrast, I blend some white right under the green cut on the nose and around the cut spaces of the outer edges of the wings. Adding light just next to the darker color brings so much definition to the whole design. So I'm going all inside my round spaces of the wing edges, just as you can see here. Blending everything out with these gentle but quick brush strokes. And then when I'm done, I take this small round brush loaded with some brown mixed with the burgundy, and I start outlining all the edges of my wings. I carefully follow all the contour. This step will make your wings stand out even more. I'm making the points sharper and making everything cleaner and more definite. I'm gently pulling down my brush on the nose sides as well, keeping the line thin and clean. Now we can start to trace out our veins with thin lines which will focus all in the inner corner of the eye, starting from the outer edges of the wings. They will remind us some super nice fall leaves. I connect them between each other, creating these sharp angled spaces. You can also check how they are made to replicate them better. Without reloading my brush, I add some extra lines even under the eyes, adding some branches to our plant composition to make everything more ancient and mysterious. Some casual and unuseful things in the center as well. When ready, take a round brush for your dots and load it with some white, best if ivory. I start painting my dots like this next to the wing edges, as they should remind some kind of holes, the ones you find on the old autumn leaves. Here I painted 4 in 2 couples per wing with different sizes. Then I add some others in the inside corner of the wing, and I start painting my actual light dots on the green areas with this super technique, which consists in blending out the white with the back tip of your brush. This creates a beautiful soft glow effect. Be careful to use this technique not for all the dots you're painting, and prefer the bigger ones instead of the smaller, which should stay clean and definite like little sparkles. I keep adding some little dots all around to give that enchanted touch, and I use the white to enhance the lights on the leaves. Then I paint this white line here to open the eye a little bit more, pressing on the inner corner and releasing towards the outer. I'm repeating the same thing even on the other eye. Then here I'm adding some other light touches here around the wings edges, just to give some more definition. I'm following all the contour. As always, this step is not that necessary actually, but I think it makes some kind of difference. By the way, if you don't have so much time by your side, you can just pass on. Moving on to lipstick now, I'm using pretty much the same technique for all of my designs, so darker on the outside edges of the lips and brighter in the inside. Using the same filbert brush, I start with the burgundy all over the lip contour and on the outer corners, blending everything inside. Then I take my fingertip sponge loaded with some orange, the same we used for the wings, and I add it in the center of my lips. I'm using the sponge because that kind of color is way more vibrant and pigmented when sponged down than painted with a brush. After the sponge application, I finish to clean up my edges with the darker color, and then I'm ready to add some sparkle to the lipstick using my fingertip. You can do it on the job after you clean your hands with a wet wipe, but it's always preferable to use a disposable applicator, especially for little kids. Blah, 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 blah. Now, the design is actually complete, we're finished, but to shoot the final pic, I added a few more touches to get it perfect, and I guess it's right to show you them. First of all, black eyeliner, I didn't record this step. Then some dark green blades of grass to embellish everything. I also enhanced the lights around the wings and the shades inside them with some more black for some more contrast. And actually, after all this, we're ready. So I'll just leave you to this extra process without actually explaining you anything. By the way, it's just about adding extra lights, extra shades, and whatever. Mirror time, proud face, I seem like a forest evil